Yasmat jatam jagat sarvam yasminyeva praliyate yenetam dharyate chaiva tasmai jnanatmane namaha. Ishvaro gururatmeti murti beda vibhagine vyomavat vyapta dehaya dakshinamurtaye namaha. Taittiriya Upanishad maya charya prasadataha vispashtartaruchinam hi vyakyeyam sampraniyate. Om Shanno mitrasam varunaha Shanno bhavatvaryama Shanna indro brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnururkramaha. Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Ritam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaram avatu avatu mam avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, we will recite today's portion, then we will start. Ritancha swadhyaya pravachanecha Satyancha swadhyaya pravachanecha Tapascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Damascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Shamascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Agnayascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Agnihotrancha swadhyaya pravachanecha Atitayascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Manushancha swadhyaya pravachanecha Prajacha swadhyaya pravachanecha Prajanascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Prajatischa swadhyaya pravachanecha Satyamiti satyavacharati Tapayiti tapo nitya paurusishtihi Swadhyaya pravachane ye vetina komodgalyaha Tadhitapas tadhitapaha. So we have looked at the first 8 anuvakas. Now Taittiriya Upanishad chapter 1 is moving in a different direction. So I want to give a little background to where we are and where we are going. And the rest of Taittiriya Upanishad is a wonderful piece of information, wonderful piece of perspective that the Rishi has. It's stunning to see it and read it today actually. It is such a wonderful perspective he is giving. We will see that. The rest of this chapter 1 is there. But before that, the first 8 anuvakas, as many of you who have been here you know, is all about upasana. 5 different upasanas were prescribed, and with that it has come to a sort of a logical end in terms of one set of thought process. Now upasana, as I have been repeatedly saying, is extremely important for 3 reasons. First of all, there is no other way to quieten the mind. This mind is wavering like anything. The only way we can quieten the mind is through a mechanism called upasana. There is no other way. So it's very important to bring down the vibrations so that things are under control. Upasana is very important for that. And second, the only way to focus the mind is upasana. That's why some people call themselves that I do Omkara Upasana. They say I am a Devi Upasaka. What is the idea? The idea is we need to, focusing the mind does not come because we 1,000 times uttered the word let us focus the mind. It's actually an effort. It's an effort in which we need to do something about the mind. And because we do something about the mind gets focused. So the second reason why upasana is actually prescribed is it focuses the mind. And the third reason why upasana is generally prescribed is to purify the mind. Mind is extremely a complicated apparatus this, the divine entity has given to us. It's extremely complicated. It can create lot of havoc. It can just go out of control. So it can be the source of all kinds of impurities that one can go through. So how do we handle it? Our rishis said, do upasana. So in other words, upasana is a mechanism with which you expand this capability called mind. Rather than let the mind do whatever it wants to do, we have a mechanism by which we hold it and do something about it. So we saw all that. 5 types of upasanas that we saw, which ended with the beautiful Omkara upasana, the greatness and the grandeur of this Om. Because we never think about this Om otherwise. Om is actually not a letter. Om can be uttered in any language because it is a sound, not a letter. You may use a lipi and then Devanagari or something and then write, or you can use English and write. Om is actually a sound. Anybody can make that sound. And we saw the grandeur of the Omkara upasana with which all these ended. So it's a great method to prepare the mind. So why did the Rishi put that as the first part of Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad? Because the Rishi wanted to tell, prepare your mind. Without mind preparation, it's like preparing a ground. If you don't prepare a ground and you try to cultivate, it's all futile. It's all kinds of things will grow. We'll end up spending a lot of mind de-weeding it. Lot of energy, money and resources in just de-weeding. Nobody can reap anything worthwhile without preparing a field. The mind is a field. If we don't prepare our mind, good things and greatest things don't happen. So that is the whole logic of upasana. The only problem, in fact, Nikhil asked a few people also, she also asked, Priya also asked one of the classes, there is a genuine problem with these 5 upasanas because we didn't really get excited too much. I am very honest. Because these are Vedic upasanas. Because many of those references we don't even know. We don't even are able to connect. That is why at times we are able to appreciate, but other times we were just all over the place because it's a Vedic upasana. The Samhita upasana, what Samhita? I mean, we don't even know what it is. Pankta upasana, what is this Pankta? I was just telling you something. I was trying to connect it to some reality. So the question is then, why did we do all that? So the idea is the Vedic upasana, the notion of upasana is far more important than the Vedic part of it because given our lifestyle, we may find it little difficult to exactly do that, but we can do upasana. That's why in Puranas and so many places, upasana is scattered all over the place. So we must get the spirit of the charm of why we do upasana from here, and we can choose. That's why all these, some of the modern, meditation, these are all related to meditation anyway. So lots of those meditation are all what? Upasanas only. Because remember, upasana is a scientific method. How do I think about India? India is such a large country. India is so vast. I mean, how do I mentally map India? I have a flag or a map. This whole idea of logo for a corporate is actually upasana. Because how do you think of a company? You go all over the place. You need to focus. So you have a logo, a brand and a logo. They are all nothing but forms of upasana. That you may be doing for some reason. But the idea doesn't go away. The idea is upasana is the only way you can bring your mind to something. Otherwise it will be all over the place. So I think that spirit we should not forget. So in the first 8 anuvakas of Sikshavalli, the Rishi came with wonderful ideas of different types of upasana. Now the conversation is shifting to something else. Now because please understand, Upasana is a vyapara of the mind. It's all your mind. You have to engage your mind. Upasana has nothing to do with your body. Upasana has nothing to do with your walk or talking or something. Upasana is a mind control exercise. So the Rishi actually has, after all these ideas of how do you prepare your mind and all those ideas, this Sikshavalli is now moving elsewhere. And here it is talking about what you have in Bhagavad Gita as Karma Yoga. It talks about, it's a very important idea which is being proposed in this part of the Upanishad. And what it says is, it's extremely important that it's not just about Upasana. As long as you are in the world, as long as you are part of the society, as long as you are in a social system, you need to be engaging in work. Nobody can escape from work. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, we have seen very extensively this discussion. We have also discussed it in great detail. Nobody can escape from work. In fact, that's why he said, there is nothing like no state of work. Krishna put some important axioms of work, if you remember, that the discussion we had. First axiom he said is, there is nothing like no work. By you are doing no work, you have actually created a lot of work. Actually, that is a fact. We may think I will do no work. Nobody can, Krishna says, nobody can be in a state of no work. As long as we are part of this society, as long as we are part of this whole complex world, everybody is in work. And that is why he said, since work is inevitable, let's talk about how do we do work. How do we engage in work? So that is the whole notion of Karma Yoga. So this is getting into that. Now this Anuvaka 9, which is what we are going to see, there are two very interesting ideas which are proposed here. It's all part of Karma Yoga. I will expand it a little bit. What it is happening here is they introduce a concept of Pancha Mahayajnas. This country lives, this country solidly believes in this is a DNA in every one of us, whether we know it or not. When we talk about it, we will see it. The DNA of this country is believing in what is called Pancha Mahayajnas. Every one of us, it is inevitable, you cannot run away from it. We have to do 5 Mahayajnas. Maybe we do it, we don't do it, we do 2 of them, we do 3 of them. This whole section, rest of Sikshavalli is actually bringing these ideas so beautifully. So that is one. The second thing that this Anuvaka also introduces is the importance of values. If you don't bring values and engage in work, work can be quite a complex thing. Work can be quite a challenging thing. A valueless society or a valueless workplace can be the major source of challenge. Modern management research is very much there. There's a lot of research now which is saying that if the place is valueless, it creates much serious problems in terms of how do you handle it. It's a serious management problem. So this Anuvaka 9 talks particularly about Swadhyaya and Pravachana. That's why if you remember, when I uttered, everything ends with by saying Satyancha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha, Dharmancha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha. Everything is saying Swadhyaya and Pravachana. Swadhyaya and Pravachana. There are 2 important words which are coming. And these are very heavily loaded words. The rishis actually convey something deeper with the choice of these words. We will see that. But before that, I want to put this paradigm of how the Vedic knowledge actually looked at what we should be doing. Now this whole Vedic knowledge is hugely practical, as opposed to this thinking that we have it is impractical, it is useless and so on. It is hugely practical. Now we will see it, 9, 10 and 11, all the 3 Anuvakas will see it very strongly. What is it saying? It is saying living in this world, as long as we live in this world, living in this world requires a 2-pronged approach. This is a Vedic prescription. I am reminded of the first sentence in Shankara Bhashya. Adi Shankaracharya wrote a commentary to Bhagavad Gita, and he wrote a preamble. Why is he writing commentary? Why is he writing a commentary on Bhagavad Gita? There are about 15 sentences he has written. The first sentence itself is a masterpiece. He says, Vedokto dvividaha Vedokto dharmaha. This is how he starts. He says in Veda, in this Vedic lore, In this Vedic wisdom, two types of dharmas are propounded. This is how he starts. Dvivido vedokto dharmaha pravarti lakshano nivritti lakshanascha jagataha sthiti karanam. This is the first statement he makes. He says, Veda has put a prescription of living, and that has two components. One is called pravarti lakshana, another is called nivritti lakshana. This is how he starts. Pravarti is all about thick of action. Pravarti is all about work. It's all about engaging in what we do. At home, at a business, at an office, in a social place, in a common neighborhood, whatever it is. Engaging in the action is called pravarti. And there is another word called nivritti. And we use nivritti in many words. And a retired person says, "Main nivritti mein ho gaya." So nivritti means no work. But here nivritti does not mean no work. What it means is, while work is one part of your story, another part of your story is contemplating and reflecting on yourself. Nobody can give it up. This is what Shankaracharya says. He says his understanding is our Vedic knowledge is organized into two parts, pravrti lakshana and nivritti lakshana. And he says jagata has sthiti karanam. The stability of this universe critically depends on our ability to hold on to these two complementary values. One is called pravrti lakshana, another is called nivritti lakshana. Then he says praninam sakshat abhyudaya nishreyasa hetuhu. Every living being goes after abhyudaya and nishreyas. Abhyudaya means material richness. I want materialism. Who said I don't want materialism? I want security, I want a peaceful living, I want a little bit of comforts. Nobody, says we don't want. That is abhyudaya. Nishreyas is I want bliss. I want peace of mind. I want that ultimate happiness. In fact, I have been asking, you can ask civilization after civilization, how many of the people want to be sad? Nobody wants to be sad. But we seem to be feeling sad. There is another problem. But the fact is, we all want materialism. We want mental peace and tranquility. So this is what he says. And so the idea is that we need to be very active, very engaged in work. So Veda says, I will give you prescriptions for that. You need to be very active. As long as you are in the world, you have to be part of the world. And you have to contribute. You have to be a social being. You have to be part of a social system. So that is one. Second, Veda says, understand your personal space. Each one of us have a unique personal space for ourselves. Nobody else knows it. Nobody else can understand it. To give you an example, right? I fell down and let's say I fell down and fractured my leg or fractured my hand. The pain is my own anubhava. Anubhava is the right word. My anubhava you don't even know. I can articulate it in words. You can understand the word. It is very painful to me if I say you can't even understand what it means. This is an example. Each one of us have anubhuti, a unique personal space. We need to recognize it. We need to evolve it. We need to grow it. We need to enrich it. Vedic wisdom says, don't run away from that. So these are the two complementary values of Vedic wisdom, right? So all these upasana, all these are all to actually say, find out your personal space. So the first part of Taittiriya Upanishad Sikshavalli was, that's why he said, look at your mind, focus your mind, control your mind. You will discover your peace of mind. All that it talked. Now it says, let me talk about the social values. How can you run away from the world? You are part of the world. So you need to do things as long as you are, alive and kick and running and so on. You have to be part of the world. So let me tell to me, this is what more can be practical than this. The biggest problem today in modern living is we have swung from nivritti into pravrti. We think peace of mind and all those are ideas which you can push under the carpet, or you don't even have to worry about it, or in fact you just ignore it and then you are worrying about it later, much later. Whereas our Vedic wisdom is constantly you have to balance both of these. So that is what pravrti and nivritti is all about. So far in Upasana and all that it is talking about, it actually was trying to tell you, look at this notion of nivritti, which is very important. Now it is turning its attention and it says, if you have to be a very responsible citizen, and you have to be part of it, two things you need to do. One is, as what Krishna says in chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, Parasparam bhavayantaha shreyaha param avapsyasa. He says you will reach the pinnacle of success in whatever you do if you understand the criticality of mutual dependence. Each one of us are mutually dependent with so many things. And Sikshavalli and Vedic lore says it's not mutual dependence between you and me. It is mutual dependence between you and me, between nature and human beings, between living entities and non-living entities. There are a whole lot of complex web of interdependence, which is what it is talking about. It says you have to develop Paraspara Bhava. You have to be very responsible citizen. What does it mean? Develop important values, practice certain types of activities, which will thereby, if you do these two, it will become a very sustainable idea. Sustainability is a big issue today. You find a lot of ideas in Vedic literature which are all about sustainability. Let's look at what kind of issues they are talking today. Some of them are at the core of sustainability. The kind of sustainability we are talking today is very narrow. It's all about ecological sustainability, whereas Vedic wisdom talks about social sustainability. It's not just ecological sustainability. You need to have a social sustainability. I mean, if you grow richer and richer, people become poorer, you are at risk. There will be a civil war. You will be finished off. It's a matter of time. You can't create such an imbalance in society. So material richness, if it is so skewed, it is not a sustainable idea, it is actually an unsustainable idea. So it gets deeper into the idea of sustainability and provides some interesting thought, which are all part of the story, which we will actually see. So while on this subject, I just want to touch upon the Karma Yoga, because the thread running behind all this is Karma Yoga, right? Now if you look at the entire Bhagavad Gita, so beautifully I can put it in 2 sentences. What is this Karma Yoga that Bhagavad Gita is talking about? In a way it will make sense to all of us, in a practical sense. There are a few important ideas. First, one cardinal principle Krishna says, as long as you work with what is in it for me, you will be dead tired very soon. As long as you work with what is in it for me, you will get tired. You will wear out faster, you will age faster, you will develop your own mental stress. I mean, I can go on, and talk about it. The point I am saying is, Krishna says that if you give up the idea of what is in it for me, work will become an extraordinarily a joyful thing. Infinite energy will flow out. There are any number of practical examples we have in our daily life. You go and watch an IPL match, you enjoy it the most because there is very little what is in it for me. You have forgotten many things. There are no performance metric hanging in front of you. If you just try sleeping for 8 hours as a performance metric, you will not sleep. Because your idea is saying, I am not getting sleep, will overpower you. Then you'll start consuming 2 sleeping pills. Then you'll say, even after swallowing a sleeping pill, I am not getting sleep. This is all performance metrics, and working for a goal will do for you. On the other hand, if you just say, I want to sleep and forget it, you will have a solid, good sleep. Every day we have experiences of this kind. Krishna talks about all that. I mean, I am using simple ideas, but working with what is in it for me will tire you. Working with not what is in it for you will discover a pathway of joy in work. That is one cardinal principle of Karma Yoga. The second idea of Karma Yoga is the acid test of work is, if you work after a period of time, you should become much more lighter, much more purified. In fact, today we are not like that. Work puts us so much trouble. Work makes us far more complicated. Work makes us sometimes more dirtier than what we can be otherwise. That's not work. Krishna's definition of work is nowhere there. He says if you really do a good work, you will become much more purified. You will become much more energetic. You will become much more purified. All that we talk. So, there are ways by which this could be done. These are all called Karma Yoga. So essentially, karma when we do, there are 2 paths in which we can go. You can go into a path of Bhoga. From karma, if you go to Bhoga, you will get into Roga. Or you can go from karma to yoga. So you can choose. You want Karma Yoga or Karma Roga. In a nutshell, that is what it is. So if you want to get into Karma Yoga, There are some cardinal principles which are to be followed. Even in this Anuvaka, we see some of them. I am saying this because we have gone through Bhagavad Gita before, so we will be able to connect some of the ideas to what we are seeing here. And this notion of Pancha Mahayajnas, all of them are coming. So let us now see this. With this kind of a background, let us see what is this Anuvaka actually trying to take us into. So I have divided it into 3 parts. The whole mantras I have split it into 3 parts. Actually there are 4 parts to it, so we will see it as we go along. So it starts by saying Ritancha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha Satyancha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha Tapascha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha Damascha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha Shamascha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha. I will put a break there. The first 5 belong to a set of ideas. The Rishi is saying, in fact, in all of them there is this repetition of Swadhyaya and Pravachana. We have to first understand that. There is something called Swadhyaya and something called Pravachana. First thing that you recognize is, looks like these 2 words are extremely important. Let's say repeating it. You know, in Vedic lore, if something is very important, they will keep on repeating. I mean, we also do it. You know, in our common parlance, if something is important, we keep repeating it and telling it again and again to people, so that they don't forget it, they don't lose sight of it. So even before we start, we are able to infer that these words Swadhyaya and Pravachana seem to be important. So we need to make a little sense of what it is. Now the question is, what is this Swadhyaya? And then we'll talk about Pravachana. So in simple English, in simple Sanskrit, Swa Adhyaya is Swadhyaya, one's own, self-study. I mean, the easiest, English translation could be self-study. Actually, this is a problem of using English in, talking Indian wisdom, because obviously it is not self-study. Although, that's the nearest that we can talk of. The question is, what is Swadhyaya? It's a deeper principle. Now think about this. Possibly, Swadhyaya and Pravachana, let me take together. Our rishis said something very, very important. The most important thing they said is, now I just want to ask this question. You got a wonderful piece of knowledge at your workplace, you asked somebody, you had a certain course and so on. My question is that, do you want to be so selfish that you say, I don't care to pass it on to the next generation? I have got my knowledge. That's it. I don't care what will happen. That could be a very short-sighted understanding of we'll talk about knowledge. In knowledge, in all fairness, if we go through knowledge, we have a responsibility that we do the baton passing. A society which does not do it without asking for market considerations. I am not talking about market consideration. A society which says that I will benefit from knowledge, I don't care about what will happen to the knowledge after me, is a society which is doomed to failure. Indian society unfortunately has slipped into it. We want to benefit from ancestral wisdom and we want to throw it out of the window. And we did it for so many years. Today ancestral wisdom itself is a laughing stock of ideas for us. So the first and the most important thing to understand is knowledge, if it has to be sustained. We are now talking about knowledge sustainability. If knowledge has to be sustained, then Swadhyaya and Pravachana must happen. Otherwise knowledge cannot sustain. You can't say, I will learn from you and then I will forget it. In fact, I go to gurus, I have been going to gurus, I find one thing common with many of them. I ask them on a Guru Purnima day, I want to go and then offer them some fruits, and in fact they don't take money, they teach me and all that. Many of them, you know what they say? They say, Mahadevan, you don't have to give me anything. I will be too happy when you are able to pass this knowledge to 5 people. This is our culture. If you do Swadhyaya, you have to do Pravachana. You have to pass it on to the next generation. So, I learned Vyakarana from somebody, so he tells me, don't give me anything. You come and tell me you are now going to teach Vyakarana to a few people. Sanskrit Vyakarana. That puts the whole platform of learning in a different platform. The whole gamut of learning, teaching process goes to a very different platform. Just think about this possibility. If I come and tell you that whatever I teach, I will be extremely happy only when you come and tell me you pass the baton to 10 more people, then this whole gamut of knowledge generation, dissemination is a very different ball game. Just reflect on this idea. That is what the Rishi is saying. The Rishi is saying that Swadhyaya and Pravachana must go together. Don't do Swadhyaya is actually learning from someone, and then of course, reciting it and getting know of it and so on. If you say I will learn everything, I'm very happy, I'm benefited, and then I don't care to pass it on, that to me doesn't appear to be a very nice idea. It looks like a foolish idea. It's not even about being nice or otherwise. It's an absolutely a foolish idea, because that society will be doomed. If knowledge is not baton passed, if the knowledge is not handed down the generation, then that is of no value. One central theme in this whole Anuvaka 1.9 that you will find is not just repeating Swadhyayacha, Pravachanayacha again and again and emphasizing this point. Many of the things he is going to say are all actually pointing to it in many ways. This is one. Now, I want to also talk about how people do this Swadhyaya and Pravachana. There are two ways to do it. See, one of the nice thing about our culture is they have put a lot of them into practices. And because we neither knew the knowledge nor knew what the practice is, it has become meaningless to us. For example, I'll give you a simple idea. Every Brahmin who is supposed to be holding this knowledge and critically involved in baton passing is supposed to do a Nitya Karma called Brahma Yajna. In fact, many don't even know today. A vast majority of Brahmins don't even know that. Now I'll tell you how the Brahma Yajna is done. It is a Nitya Karma, which means eating is your Nitya Karma and Brahma Yajna is also your Nitya Karma. So if you have to eat every day, you have to do Brahma Yajna also. So the practice is without Brahma Yajna, people don't eat. That's how they link these two. Right? Now Brahma Yajna is done like this. It's a nice small, it will take about 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes if people have practiced it properly. In Brahma Yajnam, what they do is it has two parts. The first part is that person who does Brahma Yajnam will have to, let's say I know about 500 pages of printed pages of Veda. Just take an example like that. I have learnt it from someone, and which includes Taittiriya Upanishad also, let us say. I have learned some 500 equivalent pages of printed material, let us say. Now what is my responsibility? That responsibility is now part of this Brahma Yajnam. They have done it so well. What it expects is, these 500 pages of what you have learnt, you must continuously recite. You don't have to recite all the 500 every day. The fact is, you may recite a paragraph. Today you may have more time, you may recite 4 paragraphs. Tomorrow you will have less time, you will recite only a paragraph. Day after tomorrow you have much more time, you will recite even for an hour. That's all allowed. But the fact is, you start from page 1, let us say. So the first part of Brahma Yajnam is a certain amount of compulsory recitation. That is part of Swadhyaya. So that you don't lose it. You remember it, you commit it to memory, whatever it is. So you go from page 1, let us say I have organized it, let's say in a particular way. You go through page 1 and then go through this entire cycle. Let's say I completed it in about 200 days. Roughly about a page per day or 200 pages a day. In about 200 days I completed. Then I'll come back to page 1 again. So this is the first part of the Brahma Yajna. You have to keep reciting. That's the only way you will first commit it to memory, and then you will actually pass it on to the next generation. Then the second part of Brahma Yajna is they do what is called Pancha Mahayajnas. We will talk about it as we go along the Pancha Mahayajnas, that every one of us have a responsibility to take care of 5 sets of things. And that is the most wonderful way of expressing that we create a very sustainable world. There is something called Brahma Yajna, there is something called Deva Yajna, Manushya Yajna, Bhuta Yajna and Pitru Yajna. Every one of us every day are supposed, and our practices have done it so well. Our practices is full of symbolism. That symbolism must remind us. Since we don't know this, the symbolism has no meaning. To me, an army officer being called at 9 o'clock in the morning and spend a 7 hours of elaborate ritual and putting one star on his shoulder looks complete nonsense for me. If I go and tell it to the army man, he'll shoot me. He finds meaning in that. I don't find any meaning because I have no idea what's going on. Every day in the Wagah border, there is a 1 hour ritual of how do you put the flag or open the gate or close the gate and so on. So a person who knows meaning, symbolism makes a lot of sense. We have to live in a world of symbolism because it reminds us of many things. So our practices were also, Brahma Yajna is actually symbolism. If somebody understands all these and do that 7-minute or 8-minute task of doing it, what they see is a bigger picture. So that is another way people understand the word Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means doing Brahma Yajna. But I think the larger principle is that it is extremely important that we get the knowledge, and whatever be the knowledge, it can be a secular knowledge, it can be a Vedic knowledge, it can be a knowledge of whatever sorts. Our culture believed in first committing the knowledge and strengthening that knowledge and giving it, passing it generation after generation. So that is why this word Swadhyaya and Pravachana is repeated again and again and again in all these mantras that forms part of this Anuvaka. Okay, so we will keep it as a termination. So now let's see what he says. So Rishi says Ritam Cha. Cha means also. So what is he saying? Please do Swadhyaya and Pravachana. Then he also says also do something else. So that something else is the first part of this mantra. So he says Ritam Cha. Also do Ritam, but do Swadhyaya and Pravachana. So what does it mean? So Swadhyaya and Pravachana is given. Whether you breathe or don't breathe, you do Swadhyaya and Pravachana. Whether you eat or don't eat, do Swadhyaya and Pravachana. Now it also says you can't stop there. That's obligatory, mandatory. But I'll also tell you other things that you need to do. And here it says Ritam. We have seen the meaning of Ritam, the first Shanti mantra itself, Satyam Vadishyami, Ritam Vadishyami and all that. So essentially the word Ritam and Satyam. Ritam is an approximate definite translation of Ritam is also the English word rhythm. A lot of English words have come from Sanskrit words only. So the rhythm is in a way, one version of this rhythm means that. Essentially what rhythm means is, are you in line with what this broad Vedic knowledge is saying how you should live? Are you practicing that? Are you in alignment with this broad codification of this pravritti, nivritti set of principles? So the Rishi says, do Swadhyaya and Pravachana, along with that do Ritam also. Live a rhythmic life. Only then you will be aligned with this world. That you need to have, are you doing things as prescribed in this Vedic kind of things? That is called rhythm. So the first thing he says, so the first 5 are set of values. Ritam, Satyam, Tapaha, Damaha, Shamaha. These 5 belong to a bundle of values. So the Rishi says, after all it is a convocation passing out address. So it is important we tell the kids what you are expected to do, do's and don'ts. This is the last opportunity to say. So he says, don't be in conflict with this broad set of knowledge because that gives you that rhythm of living. That's a Ritam Cha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha. Then Satyam Cha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha. The second thing he talks about is Satyam. The first thing is that don't just have worldly knowledge. Ritam is what? Not just worldly knowledge, but a reference frame based on the Vedic text and this broad principle of living. Otherwise, it may be all enjoyment and then after the age of 50, you are an empty person. This is a problem a lot of us are going through. As long as the going is well, you have a lot of money to spend and one day it is complete vacuum. You don't know what to do after that. That is a very imperfect science in which you get stuck. So align the living to this pravritti nivritti combination that we are talking about. And Satyam means, is it what I do is anyway aligned with what I know? So you can know something, you can do something else. Then it becomes Asatya. Satya is the alignment of what I know to what I do. That is the Satyam. Satyam has many other meanings. In this context, are you rhythmic? The rhythm that you know is what do you practice? That is Satyam. So Satyam Cha Swadhyaya. So do Swadhyaya and Pravachana, but also imbibe the value of Satya. So the second thing he talks about. Then the third thing he talks about is tapa. Tapas is a very nice word. The moment you say tapas, because the greatest harm that is happening with all these cereals is that takes us elsewhere. Tapas means long beard, and then maybe sand is you are covered with sand. After one day something breaks, and this is all our mental model about tapas. Tapas is a beautiful word. Tapas is a very nice thing which we must imbibe. So I will talk a little bit about tapas. So question is, what is tapas? Actually, tapas is a psychological refinery for the body-mind complex. Just think about it. Let's say there is a petrochemical complex. Okay? What happens? You bring crude. The crude is refined. And those who know a little bit of petrochemistry, you know that there are about, as you keep on refining, petrochemistry is a big subject by itself. If you refine some 400, 500 products will come out of it. And there are temperature ranges, all that is there, middle cut, rough cut, all those are there. So you refine, you get some simple wax, naphtha and those kind of things. Refine it even more, you may get probably kerosene. Refine it even further, you will get petroleum. Refine it even further, you may get aviation turbine fuel. You refine it even more, you may get rocket fuel. The power is very high. A liter of rocket fuel, if you fill it to your bus, then I don't know what will happen to the bus. In a jovial term I am saying. Point is, so this petrochemical complex, what is it doing? It is actually refining the crude. Crude is very crude. That's why it is called crude. You keep on, churn it and take value out of it. Exactly that is what tapas is. If you let your mind to do whatever it is, in fact I have been reading, I think Swami Ranganathananda very beautifully says, he says that you cannot compete with animals when it comes to body pleasure. You will lose the game, don't waste your time. You put 1 kilogram of food in front of an animal, you keep 1 kilogram of food, you put a meter to measure the joy that it has, you are nowhere near. You can have a bodily comfort, a bodily pleasure of any kind, you will not compare with animals. Today we are going in that direction. We want to compete with animals, we will be defeated solidly. The divine Lord did not create us to compete with animals. This wonderful creation created a very special creature called human being and gave it a possibility of free will. It said you have a choice. You can choose to do what you want to do. That whole process is called tapas. It enables us to transcend the sense. Don't be at a sensory level, then you are an animal. If you are just at the sensory level, feeding only for these indriyas, and then think life is only to enjoy like this, we are just animals. We have not discovered that uniqueness that we have with us. So tapas is a mechanism which is for making a choice, consciously, and say I don't need it. To say I don't need it, you have actually elevated yourself to a much higher level. It is very difficult to say I don't need it. People don't seem to be trying it at times. The temptations are far too many. So that is the starting point for tapas. So it is actually a psychological refinery. You can refine your thoughts, you can refine your choices in life, you can refine your responses to situations in life. All these are part of tapas. It is actually an expression of free will. Looks like if we are so subjugated to the indriyas, we are not expressing any free will. The mind says, I want to enjoy, they take the remote and then press it. It's very simple here. Life is simple. Just press the TV screen and passively sit in front of it. And take whatever comes, you just consume it. That is what most of us actually are attempting at. We just let the mind decide what to do, and then we are just kept our free will in a locker system, safe, so that we don't have to use it. Very rarely we seem to use free will. So if somebody does tapas, this is the meaning of tapas. If somebody is very high on tapas, they bring out this free will out of the locker whenever they want, and they can make choices. Make choices which the mind will refuse to cooperate, but that's the only way you can tame the mind and go to a much higher level. So that is what it is all about. It is a mechanism to travel the path of purity and subtlety. That is what tapas is all about actually. There are 3 shlokas in Bhagavad Gita I just wanted to quote. You know, many of these practices, again, we don't know. People do what is called upavas. Okay? Actually, the correct meaning of the word upavas, generally upavas means I don't eat. Or, you know, instead of 3 food, I have 1 food. This is all we have understood. Correct meaning of the word upavas is, upa in Sanskrit means closer. Apa means away. Upa means near. It is actually a prefix. Vas is to live. So upavas means to live closer. Live closer to what? Live closer to God. Take your distraction from many things and then think about a higher principle. Reflect on something. That is the actual meaning of upavas. So if you can stop eating, then you don't have to cook. A lot of activity gets, you know, away. You have free time. That is the whole idea behind all this. Today, for us, upavas is all about how do we adjust my eating habit. See, this is what happens when we don't understand the meaning of something and then gets elsewhere and so on. So, people had 2 very nice practices. One is called upavas. Why did they do it? Actually, they say I can control my, my desire to eat, not to eat. There are people without a cup of coffee, the day is ruined here. They say I get huge headache. I mean, are you so limited in life that a cup of coffee can take the hell out of you? That's all is your strength in life. But for many of us, it is like that. It is only a coffee which can make the day for you. Morning 7 o'clock, if the coffee doesn't come, we can have a big, World War III also. This is all we are able to do. Whereas, these practices are meant to regain our true strength by giving up 1,000 such things. So, upavas is one. On Ekadashi day, people have Mauna Vrat. It's very difficult. You just try, keep quiet for 1 hour, you'll go mad. And not to speak of 24 hours. But if you try not speak for 12 hours, you will find what difference does it make to you as a person. Because that is called Vangmaya Tapas. Tapas, Vangmaya Tapas is Maunam. It's very hard. I mean, very easy to say that. It's very difficult to, remain in silence, not for 24 hours. Try for 3 hours. Try for 1 hour to begin with. That's not easy. And as long as we have not discovered that strength in us, I don't know how many more strengths we have lost. This is the whole idea of tapas. So that's why he says there is something called Sharira tapas. He says Deva, Dvija, Guru, Prajna, Pujanam, Shaucham, Arjavam. Arjavam is straightforwardness. Your action, deeds and thoughts aligning, he says, is a tapas. That itself is a big job for most of us. Can you align all the 3? It's called Arjavam. The rich bhava is called Arjavam. Arjuna is called, it comes from Rij only. The arrow he puts goes, it doesn't go, in wrong places. It goes to the target so well. That's why it's called Arjuna. It all comes from Rij. Rij is to go straight. So it is called Arjavam. So he says, if you can do all these, that is called Shariram tapas. Then he talks about Vangmayam tapas. Anudvekakaram. Udveka, some people they talk. Moment you say one word, my BP goes to 170. That is your DNA. Udvekakaram. Moment you say something, I will get irritated. I get very agitated. Some people have that unique knack of doing it. As Krishna says, ulta. Anudvekakaram. It is not Udvekakaram. Anudvekakaram vakyam. Can you talk something which makes people very, very nice? Very generous. Can you be very generous and things of that kind? He gives several examples. Satyam, Priyam. Priyam is different from Satyam. Hitam is different from Priyam. Something which is Priyam may not be Hitam. Something which is Hitam may not be, all those are there. He uses all those words in one shot here. Satyam, Priyam, Hitam, Chayat, Swadhyaya, Abhyasam. He says one good Vangmaya tapas is Satyancha, Swadhyaya, Pravachanacha. Swadhyaya and Pravachana. All these he talks about as Vangmayam tapas. Then Manasika tapas. So there are 3 types of tapas. Can you do something about your mind? Can you do something about your body comfort? Can you do something about your talking? And people who have conquered these 3 can conquer anything in life. That is our paradigm from which we have come. Without trying any of that, we have now come to a stage to throw all of them saying all these are nonsense. Because that is the charm of our this thing. We have not tried anything, but we have been able to make a value judgment on it. Saying all these are all useless shlokas, I don't think it makes sense and so on. Without even trying many of these, we are able to make a value judgment. He talks about Sharira tapas, Vangmaya tapas and Manasika tapas. So tapas is how do you discover your strength? How do you discover you have lots of strength within you? How do you actually discover? That's what he is talking about as tapascha swadhyaya pravachanacha. Then there are two words, Dhamma and Shama. These are very important words. Dhamma and Shama. Dhamma is your ability to be at peace with the outside world. If you say something, should I shout back? If you do something, should I indulge in violence? Do I get, show my body language? These are all external. How are you able to manage yourself with the outside world is called Dhamma. If you don't have Dhamma, then you will have Mada, the reverse of it. Mada is inebriated state. The Sanskrit word is such, if you ulta karke, Dhamma becomes Mada, the word is also reversed. Mada is, you know what Mada is? An elephant gets Mada. So Mada is an inebriated state. Whereas Dhamma is where you are able to handle the outside world. That is called Dhamma. Then the next thing is called Shama. Shama is your ability to handle the inside world. I will give a very nice example. Somebody, these are people who have told these experiences. Somebody said, sir, I will now, these tapas and all very nice things, I am going to do upavas. Every Ekadashi I am going to upavas. This is a real story. So this person came to me and said, sir, I want to share with you something. I said, what is it? Sir, last 2 Ekadashi I am in upavas, but let me tell you, all the time I am thinking of food only. So the outside world you controlled. Inside world you cannot. He said, sir, the inside world became much more intense. This feeling of this jamun and the smell of jamun is there all the time in me. It's as good as eating jamun actually. This is called Shama. So you can conquer the outside world. I mean, I may be very nice to you, internally I am killing you. I am wishing you all bad things, but outside. So these are 2 stages in our the psychological refinery can move to higher planes. That's what the Rishi is pointing to. He says you develop Dhamma, you develop Shama. So there are 5 set of values he talks about. He says Ritam, Satyam, Tapa and Dhamma and Shama. So these 5 make one block. He tells the students, you will not make out a great individual if you don't develop these values. You are not going to go anywhere. You do all that while doing Swadhyaya and Pravachana also. Don't leave it, but then develop these values. So this is one set. Then he talks about Agnayascha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha and Agnihotrancha Swadhyaya Pravachanecha. See, Agnayascha, simple definition is you have to maintain Agni also. This is a simple translation. And what does that actually mean? What do you mean by Agnayascha? Actually, it points to a variety of Vedic rituals. He says, the Rishi says that you do Swadhyaya and Pravachana and all that, which are all fine, but you have to also give your offerings to the God. There are 5 yajnas. Now I will talk about 5 yajnas. The 5 yajnas that they have specified are, the first yajna is called, Deva yajna. And they say that you have to coexist with these larger indivisible forces behind you. The word Deva means invisible forces. How do you do it? You say you do yajna. I went to a place in Kerala in 2004. They did an yajna there. And this is a yajna which was done after 220 years. In fact, there is one family who knows how to do the yajna. If that family goes, I think it's over. It's called Aptaryama Soma Yajna. They did that. What stunned me, amazed me was not the yajna. Yajna was very good. What stunned me was there are 100 scientists who came there. And you know what these guys were doing? They were all putting all kinds of gadgets all over the place in about 300-meter radius, very complicated gadgets. Then a lot of people from NIMHANS, Bangalore, National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, about a dozen of them came. They also put all those gadgets and so on. So I went and asked them what is happening. Now they said, sir, if you do yajna, Vedic literature says that rain will come, this will come, the plants will grow better. This is actually giving offering to Deva. Rain is a form of Deva, the Aushadhi is a form of Deva. Okay? We wanted to actually verify it. So they put all kinds of gadgets and then they collected data. It was a 10-day yajna. Big yajna they did. After a year they made a presentation. I was invited and I also attended that. They finally came and said, yes sir, this plant grew a little longer. That was better. Actually rain came. 10th day and onwards, massive rain for in that certain area and so on. So it is one thing to have faith, other thing is to waste a lot of your money and energy and finally come to the same conclusion. You can do that. We are all now want to go that way and then good luck to all of us will do. That is what is, what is called Deva Yajna. There are many things that they are saying. They say that creates a certain kind of a thing in the ecosystem. Understand that you have to develop the ecosystem, only then you can live. Otherwise it's difficult to live. These are all part of different, there are 26 yajnas which are specified. And so the Agnayascha actually says, you be part of, do all these because the whole ecosystem will actually cooperate with you. You'll get your rains, you'll get your planting, Aushadis and Vanaspatis and all those are in place and so on. So that is the Agnayascha. So it is actually a sustainability problem, sort of. You have to coexist with a larger system and you have to do things which are, if you say what I see is all what I can believe, then the world is too small. It's extremely a narrow perspective of world. If you say all that I can see and verify is all that is true, then you are actually cocooning yourself into something very, very narrow actually. And at one step at a time you have to travel there. That's why you have to put so many gadgets and finally come to the same conclusion, which is what they were doing and so on. Then it says Agnihotram cha Swadhyaya Pravachane. In fact, in our practice, a moment a person is married, okay, moment a person is married, he is supposed to do two things. One is called Shrauta, another is called Smarta. Smarta comes from Smriti, Shrauta comes from Shruti. So there are certain things which you have to do ordained in Shruti, and there are certain things which you are supposed to do ordained in Smriti. How do I remember it? These are all symbolism. How do you remember it? You do something, you remember it. Oh, this is what it is telling. So the Shrauta is called Agnihotra, the Smarta is called Upasana. And you know what is our way of living? The day you are married, you actually start this Agni ritual. Upasana must be done from the day you are married. Agnihotra must start before 6 months. It's exactly like our MP must get re-elected before 6 months. In our electoral college, 6 months is one before you have to become an MP. Otherwise you lose your minister's post. Same thing. Within 6 months you have to start your Shrauta Karya, which is Agnihotra. Right? And out of which this is called Garhapatni. This Agni, there are names for it. This Agni is called Garhapatya. Grihasya Adhipati. The presiding Ejamana of a living household is this fire. That's why it's called Garhapatya. Right? And out of that they will take, Ahavaniya and Dakshina and do different things. Anyway, point is the way we were living is the day you got married, you light a fire, and the day you die you have to use the same fire to cremate. Which means the fire has to be maintained throughout. From the day a person is married till the day that person dies, that Agni, it's called Agni Adana. That's why any ritual they do, first they will do what is called Agni Adana. Today they may use a cigarette lighter or matchbox and start an Agni. That's not what it is. It is saying that this whole notion of how do you, create an integrated system, how do you align many of the things that you do which are said in Shruti and Smriti, how do you do it? To remember that Upasana and Agnihotra. Agnihotra is done twice a day. Upasana is done twice a day. These are all part of the system that talks about all that. But today all of them yield no meaning to us. Because we don't even know what is being done and why is it being done. These are all part of what is called Brahma Yajna. The knowledge has to be retained, the knowledge has to be carried, the knowledge has to be passed down the generation and so on. To remind all these two symbolic rituals are kept in place. If you know the symbolism and do the ritual, while you do the ritual, you know what is a larger thing which I have to hold my hand on and not lose sight of. That is the idea of, Agnihotra. So he says, don't give up Agnihotra. Do Swadhyaya and Pravachana, but then maintain this fire. So these two are for part of the Deva Yajna, so that you are part of the ecosystem, and then you give and then take back parasparam bhava. You give, that's why in Bhagavad Gita it says, Devan bhavayata anena, te deva bhavayantu aha. You offer to the God, God will offer back to you. You don't have to see, it's a much larger system. You don't even know this complex web of interactions. But there is a nice TED video I want you to see. It's not a TED video, it's some other video. How wolves change the course of the river. I showed it in one of the courses. I teach. It's amazing. In the Grand Canyon area, all that they did was they brought some wolves and then they left it in the river. The complete ecosystem changed. It's a 7-minute video which talks about it. So the Western world is understanding this deep, intricate relationship between known and unknown, seen and unseen. All those, one step at a time they are understanding. This whole Deva Yajna is actually telling us that this complex world is so interconnected. There are known, unknown, so many factors are there. So do some of these, you will be in peace with the nature. That is what these two things are. Then he moves on. Then there is a set of 4, very interesting. I'll just recite it, we'll continue in the next class. It's already 7, but I want to just give an introduction. It says, Atitayascha swadhyaya pravachanecha, manushancha swadhyaya pravachanecha, prajacha swadhyaya pravachanecha, prajanascha swadhyaya pravachanecha, prajatischa swadhyaya pravachanecha. This talks about social sustainability. There are wonderful ideas contained in this, which talks about the crux of social sustainability. How do you ensure that not only you live in peace, your people around you also live in peace? Otherwise, you are in danger. If you think that I don't care about others, then you have to invest heavily on security guards and then bulletproof vehicles for you to go and come, because life is not easy otherwise. This gives a set of, again, 5 ideas. They are all related to social system. The Rishi says, what is your responsibility being it's a sort of a CSR, if you want to use a word like that. What is your responsibility in this larger social system? That is being mentioned here, which we will see, next class. I just wanted to just introduce it. It's already 7:02. I think I will stop here. We'll continue this discussion in the next class. Thank you. Okay. You can stop it and save it.